When my daughter-in-law Lila first moved into our family home, I welcomed her with open arms. She was everything my son, Aaron, had dreamed of: stylish, confident, and full of charm. She had a way of lighting up a room, and for a while, I believed she'd bring that same light into our home. But light, I've learned, can also cast shadows. It began subtly, small comments here and there. "Oh, you still keep those old curtains up?" Or, "Maybe we should modernize the kitchen. It's kind of vintage." I brushed it off at first, telling myself she was just trying to make the place feel like her own. After all, every new wife wants to add her touch to a home. But I didn't realize her touch would soon mean erasing me completely. The home we lived in had history. My late husband and I built it from the ground up. Every tile, every painting, every memory was stitched into its walls. I used to walk through the hallway and feel his presence in the way the floorboards creaked. But once Lila moved in, it was as if the soul of the house began to fade. It started with the living room. She had new furniture delivered without even asking me. "It's just a surprise," she said, her tone sugary sweet. My old couch, the one where Aaron took his first steps, was gone. In its place was a sleek leather sectional that smelled of money and disinterest. Next came the walls, my family photos replaced with abstract art and gold frames. My memories taken down, boxed up, and shoved into a corner of the attic like clutter. When I tried to speak up, Aaron just smiled nervously. "Mom, it's okay. Lila just wants to make the house feel modern. You know how she is." Yes, I knew exactly how she was. Within weeks, I felt like a guest in my own home. Lila began hosting her friends, showing them around as if she were the rightful owner. "This is our house." She'd beam, emphasizing the hour in a way that made my stomach twist. Her friends would glance at me with polite smiles, the kind people reserve for someone they pity but don't understand. One even asked, "Oh, do you live here too?" I wanted to scream. I built this place. The breaking point came one Friday evening. Lila and Aaron had just returned from dinner, and I was in the kitchen cleaning up. She walked in, her perfume clouding the air, and said, "You know, Mom, it's really time you consider maybe finding your own space, somewhere quieter." The words hit like a slap. "My own space?" I repeated. "Yes," she continued, brushing imaginary dust off the counter. "You deserve peace. And, well, Aaron and I need privacy. You understand, right?" I looked at my son, waiting for him to intervene, to defend me, but he didn't. He just lowered his eyes. That night, I cried quietly in my room. The house felt colder, unfamiliar. My husband's photo on the dresser seemed to watch me, his eyes saying what I couldn't. "Don't let them take what we built." Days turned into weeks, and I began to notice strange things. Furniture moved when I hadn't touched it. My belongings shifted slightly, almost like someone had been going through them. One afternoon, I found my late husband's watch missing from its drawer. I asked Aaron, and he said maybe I misplaced it, but I knew I hadn't. Then, one morning, as I walked past the kitchen, I heard Lila whispering on the phone. "She's so paranoid," she said, laughing. "Always snooping around. I swear she's losing it." That was the moment something in me hardened. They wanted me gone, but I wasn't going to leave quietly. You see, my husband and I had installed small cameras around the property years ago, not for spying, but for security. He ran a small electronics business, and these cameras were his early prototypes. I never told anyone they were still functional, not even Aaron. That night, I went into the basement, found the old DVR system, and powered it on. To my surprise, the cameras still worked and had been recording all along. What I saw made my blood run cold. The footage showed Lila and her friend, a woman I'd never seen before, walking through my bedroom while I was out shopping. They laughed as they went through my drawers. Lila held up my late husband's watch, said something I couldn't quite hear, then dropped it into her purse. I felt sick. All this time she'd been making me feel old, useless, paranoid, when in reality she was the one invading my life. But I didn't confront her immediately. I waited. I watched. For 2 more weeks, I gathered footage, her mocking me behind my back, telling her friends I was senile, even whispering to Aaron that maybe I needed to be put in a nursing home. Each clip cut deeper than the last. Finally, one morning, I knew it was time. Aaron and Lila were having breakfast when I walked in, holding a small USB drive. "I'd like to show you both something," I said calmly. Lila looked annoyed. "Mom, we're eating." "I insist," I said, my voice steady. Aaron hesitated, sensing the tension. "What is it?" I plugged the drive into the TV. The screen flickered, and then there she was. Lila, in my room, laughing, stealing, lying. The color drained from her face. "What is this?" she stammered. "Security footage," I said softly. "From the home you thought you owned." Aaron looked between us, stunned. "Lila, is this true?" She tried to deny it, but the footage spoke louder than her excuses. When it ended, I turned to my son. "This is what's been happening while you looked away." Aaron's face was pale. He didn't say a word. For the first time, I didn't feel weak. I didn't feel small. I felt powerful, because truth has a way of turning silence into thunder. "Lila," I said quietly, "you wanted me out of this house, but maybe it's time you're the one who leaves." Her eyes widened. "You can't do that." I smiled. "Actually, I can, because I still own this home. The deed was never transferred." The room fell silent. Lila's lips parted in disbelief. "You're lying," she whispered, her voice trembling. Aaron said. I raised my hand calmly. "Aaron assumed, but I never signed the transfer papers. This home still belongs to me and to the memory of the man who built it. You may have decorated it, Lila, but you don't own it. Not the walls, not the floors, not even the air you breathe here." Her expression changed from shock to fury. "You're just doing this to humiliate me." I looked at her steadily. "No, dear. I'm doing this to remind you that respect is earned, not demanded." Aaron was still silent. His hands were clasped tightly together, his face pale. I could see the guilt washing over him, the realization that he had allowed his wife to tear our family apart piece by piece. "Mom," he began softly, I didn't know." "I know you didn't," I said. "You trusted her, but trust is fragile, son. And when you give it to the wrong person, it becomes a weapon against you." Lila pushed back from the table, her chair scraping the floor. "You think you can just kick me out? Aaron, tell her. Tell her we're not leaving." Aaron didn't respond. He just looked at me, then at her, and something shifted in his eyes. The blindfold that love had tied around his reason finally fell away. "Lila," he said quietly, "you went through my mother's things. You took Dad's watch. You lied to me." She stood up, her voice rising. "Oh, come on. That stupid watch? It was gathering dust. She wouldn't even notice if it disappeared." My breath caught, but I stayed silent. Aaron's jaw tightened. That stupid watch was my father's. It was the only thing he left behind that we could hold on to. For the first time, her confident mask cracked. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Aaron cut in, his tone sharp now. "You meant every word, every sneer, every lie." The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, I spoke. "You've spent months trying to erase me, Lila. But here's the thing about the past. You can paint over it, redecorate it, hide it in the attic, but it always finds a way to show up again." Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't from regret. They were from rage. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. "I'll make you regret ever crossing me." I smiled faintly. "No, Lila. You've already made sure you're the one who regrets it." That night, Aaron packed a small bag and stayed in the guest room. Lila stormed upstairs and slammed the door. I sat alone in the living room, listening to the quiet hum of the house. My house. And for the first time in months, it felt peaceful. The next morning, Aaron knocked on my door. His face was tired, his eyes red from sleeplessness. "Mom," he said softly, "I don't even know where to begin. I let things get out of control." I gestured for him to sit beside me. "You're my son, Aaron. I know your heart. You wanted to make your wife happy, and there's no shame in that. But love shouldn't come at the cost of your integrity or your family." He nodded, staring down at his hands. She kept saying we needed space, that you were holding us back. I sighed. People like Lila mistake control for independence. She wanted a kingdom where she could rule, not a home where she could belong. We talked for hours about the house, about his father, about how grief can twist people in ways they don't understand. By the time the sun rose higher in the sky, I saw a new light in Aaron's eyes, the kind that comes when a person starts seeing truth again. But Lila wasn't done. Later that day, she came downstairs dressed in full makeup, her face perfectly composed. "I've decided to stay," she announced. "You can't force me out. Aaron and I are married. This is our home, too." Aaron's tone was flat. "Not anymore, Lila." Her head snapped toward him. "What did you just say?" "I said it's not our home," he repeated quietly. "You've made it clear this place was never about family for you. It was about control, about appearances." Lila folded her arms, sneering. "Oh, please, you think you can just walk away? You can't survive without me." Aaron looked at her, then at me, and smiled faintly. "I think we'll manage." Her face twisted with anger. "You'll regret this." But she was wrong again. Over the next few days, she tried everything. Crying, threatening, manipulating. She told her friends I'd turned Aaron against her. She even called her parents, who accused me of being controlling. But the evidence was undeniable. The footage, the stolen items, the lies. They painted a picture she couldn't erase. One morning, I woke up to find her gone. A note on the counter read, "Enjoy your precious house. You can have it, and your miserable son too." For the first time in a long time, the air felt lighter. The house seemed to breathe again. Aaron and I spent the next few weeks quietly restoring the home, putting the family photos back on the walls, polishing the old furniture, and laughing at the memories that once filled the space. It felt like healing. Then, one afternoon, Aaron came home from work looking pale. "Mom," he said, "you might want to see this." He handed me his phone. There, on the screen, was a video, posted by Lila herself. She was sitting in what looked like a fancy apartment, crying dramatically for the camera. "She ruined my life," she sobbed to her online followers. "My mother-in-law kicked me out of my own home. She planted cameras to spy on me. She's toxic." The video had already gained thousands of views. I felt the familiar sting of humiliation. But before I could speak, Aaron chuckled. "Keep watching." A moment later, the video cut. Apparently, someone had screen-recorded part of it, to her bragging about how she played the old lady like a fiddle, and how she almost got the deed transferred. People in the comments had caught it. Her carefully constructed narrative was falling apart in real time. The truth, as always, had found its way out. Aaron sighed with relief. "You don't need to defend yourself, Mom. The world's already seeing her for who she is." But I wasn't satisfied with just surviving this. I wanted closure, not revenge, but justice. I gathered all the footage, the messages, and even screenshots of her fake online sob story, and handed them to a lawyer friend. He suggested we file a claim for theft and defamation. I wasn't sure at first, but Aaron insisted. "She tried to destroy you, Mom. This isn't just about a house anymore. It's about dignity." So we did. And when the court date came, Lila's face, when the footage played on the big screen, was something I'll never forget. Her lies crumbled. Her arrogance melted away. The judge ruled in our favor. Lila was ordered to return the stolen jewelry, issue a public apology, and pay damages. After the hearing, she approached me outside the courthouse. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you just let me win? You already had everything." I looked her straight in the eye. Because some things are worth more than everything. Then I turned and walked away. That night, as I sat in the living room, the one she once tried to redesign, I smiled. The air was still. The photos were back. The light had returned. And for the first time, I whispered to my husband's picture on the mantel, "We did it. Our home is ours again." But little did I know, Lila wasn't quite done yet. When I woke up the next morning, the house was silent. For the first time in years, there wasn't the sound of clinking dishes, the faint hum of the vacuum, or her cheerful humming drifting from the kitchen. The silence was deafening. I sat up in bed, feeling the absence like a weight pressing down on my chest. The perfect home she wanted, the one she built with polished tiles and curated furniture, now felt hollow, like a museum that no one visited anymore. I walked through the living room, where sunlight poured through the spotless windows. Everything was in its place. The silver vase centered perfectly, the cushions neatly fluffed, the carpet brushed to perfection, but it all felt wrong, lifeless, soulless. I picked up a small frame from the side table, an old picture of us from 10 years ago. She was smiling, her arms around me, and her eyes full of life. That smile had faded long before she left. I could almost trace the moment when perfection started to replace love, when appearances became more important than feelings, when flaws became reasons to withdraw. I set the frame down and noticed something. The corner of the room, just under the painting, a small red light flickered. The hidden camera. I'd forgotten it was even there. A pang of guilt hit me, but curiosity overpowered it. What if I could finally understand what went wrong? I sat down at my computer, opened the feed from the night before, and pressed play. There she was, pacing around the living room, restless. Her movements were sharp, irritated. She picked up a cushion, smoothed it 3 times, then threw it down in frustration. She muttered something under her breath I couldn't catch. Then she grabbed her phone and started talking to someone. Everything's done. The renovation, the new setup. It's finally perfect, she said, a tired smile on her face. But you know what? He doesn't fit in here anymore. I thought once the house was fixed, I'd feel complete. But I just feel trapped. My heart sank. The words cut deep. She wasn't talking about the house. She was talking about me. Her voice trembled slightly. He just doesn't get it. I need peace. I need control. I need order. She paused, then added quietly, I've spent years living in his mess. Emotionally, physically. I can't breathe in it anymore. I froze. Years? I hadn't realized she saw me like that, as chaos instead of comfort. Maybe I had been too focused on work, too wrapped up in my own exhaustion, to notice the distance growing. But then, something changed in her tone. Softer, almost wistful. Maybe he'll understand someday. Maybe he'll see what I was trying to build. She sighed, placed her phone down, and sank into the couch, staring at the empty room like it was a stranger. I paused the footage. My emotions were a storm. Anger, regret, confusion. But beneath it all, something else stirred. Realization. I'd lost her long before she left. Not because I didn't care, but because I stopped listening. I'd been so busy providing, fixing things, earning, solving problems, that I forgot to notice what she actually needed. Presence. Still, the bitterness lingered. The humiliation of being pushed aside. The loneliness of hearing her words. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling. That evening, I walked out to the garden, the one she used to call her sanctuary. The flowers she planted had started to wilt, the soil dry and cracked. It was like a mirror of our relationship, something beautiful, once tended with love, now abandoned. I picked up the watering can and started reviving the plants, one by one. The air smelled like wet earth and faint memories. As the days passed, I kept watching snippets of that footage, not out of obsession, but to piece together the truth, both hers and mine. And then, one afternoon, I found something unexpected. A second clip, from 2 weeks before she left. She was sitting at her desk, staring at a blank page in her journal. She whispered softly, "Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe perfection isn't peace. Maybe I pushed him away because I couldn't control my own chaos." Tears filled her eyes. He deserves someone who doesn't need everything to be perfect to love him. My breath caught. All this time, I thought she'd left out of pride. But maybe it was guilt. Maybe she couldn't bear to see the reflection of her own disappointment in me. That night, I replayed that moment over and over. Her trembling voice, her tears, the truth hidden beneath all the perfection. It wasn't hatred. It was confusion. The kind that comes when love starts to suffocate under expectations. Weeks turned into months. The house began to look different, less staged, more lived in. The perfect symmetry she created faded into warmth again. And though she was gone, her presence still lingered in the corners, in the echo of every memory we built together. Then, one evening, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, she stood there, not in her crisp designer clothes, but in a simple dress, hair tied back, eyes soft, almost vulnerable. "I shouldn't be here," she said quietly, but I couldn't stay away. The air between us was heavy, with everything unsaid. "I saw the video," I said finally. She looked down. "Then you know." "I do. I also know you weren't the only one lost in it." She met my eyes then. For the first time in months, I built a home that looked perfect because I didn't know how to fix what was inside me. And I thought maybe, if I made the outside flawless, I'd finally feel enough. I nodded slowly, and I hid behind work, pretended that effort could replace attention. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of truth, of pain, of the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, something broken could still be mended. "Do you still have the footage?" she asked. "Yes." "Then don't delete it," she said softly. "Let it remind us. Perfection isn't peace." She turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway. "You always said love was about building a home together. I guess I forgot that the home isn't the walls. It's us." As she walked away, I didn't call her back. Not yet. Some distances can't be closed overnight. But for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt understanding. Because sometimes, love doesn't end with slamming doors. It ends quietly, with realization. And if you're lucky, that realization becomes the beginning of something new. Days passed, but her visit lingered in my mind like the echo of a melody that refused to fade. I couldn't stop thinking about her words. Perfection isn't peace. They played over and over in my head, reshaping the way I looked at everything around me. The house no longer felt like a monument to failure. It felt like a lesson. Every corner, every scratch on the wall, every imperfection was proof that life had happened here, that love had existed here, even if it had faltered. One evening, as I sat by the window watching the sunset, I opened the laptop again. The folder with the hidden camera footage stared back at me like a doorway to the past. For a moment, I hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, I clicked play once more. This time, I watched without bitterness. I watched her through the lens of understanding, not resentment. I noticed things I hadn't before. The small sighs when she thought no one was listening. The way she touched the walls as if grounding herself. The fleeting sadness behind her perfectionism. In one clip, she was rearranging the living room for the 5th time that day. She paused suddenly, staring at the photo of us. Her fingers traced my face gently. "You were always enough," she whispered. I just didn't believe I was. That moment broke me and healed me all at once. Because that was the truth neither of us had said out loud. She wasn't trying to escape me. She was trying to escape the version of herself that never felt whole. I closed the laptop, tears blurring my vision. Maybe love isn't about holding on until everything is perfect. Maybe it's about accepting that it never will be, and choosing each other anyway. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went outside, grabbed a bucket of paint, and began repainting the front door. The color was different this time. Softer, warmer. It wasn't the sharp white she loved. It was a deep, calming blue. My neighbor, Mrs. Jensen, peeked over the fence. "Redecorating again?" she asked with a smile. "Not redecorating," I said quietly. "Rebuilding." She nodded knowingly. "Good. Sometimes rebuilding means starting with yourself." That night, I sat on the porch, the fresh paint still drying behind me. The stars hung low and bright, and for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt peaceful. A few days later, I got a text from her. No long message, no explanations. Just a single photo, her sitting in a small cafe, a notebook open in front of her, a faint smile on her face. Below it, she'd written, "Learning to live without fixing everything." I stared at that photo for a long time. She looked lighter, freer, like the weight of years had lifted off her shoulders. And in a strange way, it made me happy. Because love isn't always about having someone next to you. Sometimes it's about knowing they finally found peace, even if that peace doesn't include you. But life, it seems, had other plans. A week later, as I returned home from work, I found an envelope on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a small USB drive. My heart raced. I plugged it into my laptop, and the screen flickered to life. It was her, sitting in the same room where we'd built our dreams. Only this time, the camera wasn't hidden. She was looking directly into it. "I don't know if you'll ever watch this," she began, her voice steady but soft. "But if you do, I want you to know something." She took a deep breath. When I left, I thought I was freeing myself. But what I didn't realize was that I was running from the wrong prison. It wasn't this house, it was my own expectations. I wanted everything to be perfect because I was terrified of being ordinary. I thought love had to look a certain way. Flawless, effortless, like the movies. But love isn't perfect, and that's what makes it real. She paused, eyes glistening. "You always told me that home isn't a place. It's a feeling. I didn't understand it then. I do now." She smiled faintly. "I don't know where we go from here. Maybe we're better apart. Maybe we'll find our way back. But I wanted you to see me, really see me, without the walls, without the perfection." The screen went black. I sat there for a long time, stunned. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, wanting to respond, to reach out, but there was nothing to say. She had already said everything. That night, I walked into the living room and stood beneath the camera, the same one that had once captured her secrets. I looked up at it and whispered, "I see you now, and I forgive you." Then, I turned it off for good. Months passed. The seasons changed. Life settled into a quiet rhythm. I started cooking again. Real meals, not the takeout that had become my habit. I started inviting friends over, laughing more, breathing easier. The house felt alive again. One Saturday morning, as I was trimming the garden, I saw her car pull up at the curb. My heart skipped a beat. She stepped out, holding a small box. "I found some of your things," she said, her tone gentle. "Thought you might want them back." I nodded, taking the box from her. "Thanks." She lingered, eyes scanning the house. "It looks different." "So do you," I replied. She smiled, a real, unguarded smile. Maybe we both learned something. Maybe we did. For a moment, it felt like time folded in on itself. Like we were standing at the intersection of who we were and who we'd become. Not enemies, not lovers. Just two people who had finally learned how to see themselves clearly. Before she left, she turned and said, "For what it's worth, I'm glad you had that camera. Not because it caught me, but because it showed us both what we'd been missing." I watched her drive away, the sound of her car fading into the distance. Later that evening, I opened the box she'd brought. Inside were small fragments of our life. A watch I thought I'd lost. A keychain from our honeymoon. A note that simply said, "Thank you for loving me when I didn't love myself." I closed the lid gently, placed it on the shelf, and smiled. Not a sad smile, a grateful one. Because sometimes, the most painful endings are really disguised beginnings. And maybe, just maybe, she and I didn't lose each other at all. We just found ourselves. Months turned into a year. The house that had once felt like a battlefield of memories was now my sanctuary. I'd learned to live with its silence, to fill it with laughter when friends visited, and to find meaning in the smallest of details. The morning light spilling across the floor, the creak of the old staircase, the sound of rain tapping on the windows. One day, as I sorted through some old paperwork, I stumbled upon something I had almost forgotten, the property deed. I smiled, remembering how it had all begun. She had once called it her dream home, then rejected it as a burden. And now, it stood as both a monument to our past and a reminder of how far I had come. But life has a curious sense of timing. That evening, I received a message from her again. It wasn't long, just a link. No words, no explanation. My heart raced as I clicked on it. It led to a news article about a small interior design studio that had opened downtown. The photo at the top? Her, standing in front of her new shop, smiling, her hands covered in paint. The headline read, "Local designer finds beauty in imperfection." I couldn't help but laugh. She had finally embraced the one thing she used to fear most, imperfection. The next day, I visited her shop, not to confront her, not to reopen old wounds, but to see the person she had become. The bell above the door chimed as I stepped inside. The place was small but beautiful, a blend of colors, textures, and chaos that somehow worked perfectly together. She looked up from the counter, and for a moment, time froze. "You came," she said softly. "I did," I replied. "You did a good job here." She wiped her hands on her apron, smiling shyly. "Thank you. It's still a work in progress." "So was our home," I said. "Maybe that's why I loved it." Her eyes softened, and she nodded. I didn't understand that before. I looked around, admiring the mismatched furniture, the hand-painted walls, the faint scent of coffee in the air. Everything felt alive, imperfectly perfect. "You found your peace," I said. She took a deep breath. "I think I did." "And you?" I smiled. "Yeah, I found mine too." We stood there for a long moment, two people who had walked through fire and come out softer, not burned. Whatever pain we had caused each other had turned into something else now. Understanding, acceptance, maybe even quiet admiration. As I was about to leave, she reached into a drawer and handed me something small, a flash drive. "There's something on here I think you should see," she said. Later that night, I plugged it into my laptop. The screen lit up, and there she was again, sitting in her studio, talking to the camera. "I wanted to thank you," she began, "for seeing me when I didn't want to be seen, for not using that footage to destroy me, even though you could have. I know it must have hurt, watching everything I said, everything I did, but because of it, I was forced to face myself, the parts I kept hiding behind the word perfect." She smiled faintly. "You didn't just catch my flaws, you helped me see them, and for that, I'll always be grateful." The video ended there. No dramatic music, no long confession, just honesty. And somehow, that was enough. After that night, I decided it was time to let go completely. Not just of her, but of the version of myself that kept clinging to the past. I walked into the living room one last time, picked up the small box she'd given me months ago, and drove to the lake where we'd once spent our first anniversary. The air was still. The water shimmered beneath the setting Sunday. I opened the box, pulled out the note. "Thank you for loving me when I didn't love myself." I smiled, then placed it gently on the water. It floated for a while before sinking beneath the surface, disappearing into the calm depths. That was my goodbye. As I drove home, a strange peace washed over me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was simply free. When I reached home, I stood in the doorway,